And welcome into the show. Today we are re-ranking the 2022 rookie class. I guess they're sophomores now. We're going to do a little bit of a spin to it, right? We're going to be drafting these players, kind of based on where we see their dynasty value going. I'm Alfredo Brown. I'm joined by Dave Kluge. And guess what? I believe that's Joey Wright's music because we have a brand new... You like my little wrestling homage?
I do. I like it. And I hope you're going to put music in for me because that'll make it even better.
Oh, no, definitely not. That's way too much work. But we got Joey Wright jumping in on the pod. Joey, we're super excited that you're joining the team here, man. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be with Football Guys. Thank you to Dave. And thank you, Alfredo. Thank you, Joe. Super excited to be on the team. Ready to talk about some football.
All right. So what we're going to do, instead of like making a consensus board and say, oh, these are our rankings, I feel like a really fun way to do this and just kind of like plant your flag and have a little bit more discussions and have definitely some disagreements, because I know we're going to have disagreements here, is let's turn this into like a little bit of a draft, as if we are redrafting this rookie class as to where we see their dynasty value going. And I kind of wanted to do a dynasty angle here because, listen, the only people listening or watching a fantasy football show in the middle of February are the dynasty degenerates. Okay, so we're going to play to them for a little bit. Yeah. All right, so we're going to use this, the rankings from the Football Guys dynasty rankings on the website. All right, now let's get into round one. Dave, at the 101, you are up. Who are you taking?
You know, I don't think I'm going to have to defend this one too hard. I'd be surprised if I get a lot of pushback here, but right now, Breece Hall is the RB1 on just about any set of rankings list that you're going to be able to find out there. Prior to his injury, he was looking like arguably the best running back in the NFL. I know it's a really dangerous game to remove games from a sample size, but Hall was only a part-time player for the first few weeks of the season. And then in week 7, he got knocked out in the first quarter with a torn ACL. So really what we're looking at is a sample size of 3 games where he was seeing over 55% of the snaps and playing what we consider to be a full-time player. And in those 3 games, he was averaging 21.2 PPR fantasy points per game, which would have been the second most in the league behind only Austin Eckler. I mean, this guy was giving us absolutely elite production at one of the toughest positions to find. Still just 21 years old, too. We are looking at years and years and years of RB1 potential from Breece Hall. Now, I know there are some concerns with an ACL tear, but he's young. He is a freak athlete. Might be looking at a slow start to the 2023 season, but long-term, I have no concerns whatsoever. I think anybody besides Breece Hall at 101 is just probably getting a little bit too cute.
Now, I want to take a little bit of extra time here with Breece Hall because you mentioned the ACL, right? And Joey, I know this wasn't your pick, but let's get a read of the room here, right? How do we all feel about Breece Hall with this ACL, the change in offensive coordinator, everything going on in New York? Like, they don't, I guess technically, maybe they have a quarterback kind of with Zach Wilson right now. Like, what's your temperature gauge? Is this Breece Hall like across the board #1 running back for this class, #1 player for this class, and you're cool with him going forward?
Oh, absolutely. In Dynasty, he's my #1 running back. There's no doubt about it. And next season, I believe he's my #3 running back that I have ranked. I love Breece Hall next year. I don't think it's going to take too long. We were talking before the show that he's back up and running again. So I have no concerns really with Breece Hall at all. The only thing I'm a little worried about is how much of a share they're going to give Michael Carter, because even when they were both playing great last year, they were still almost at a 50-50. It's more like 60-40. I do think that'll slide off, though.
So, but before people like are rolling their eyes like, oh, we're doing this again, the Michael Carter thing. Like, Joey, you actually bring up a good point, because new offensive coordinator for the Jets, Nathaniel Hackett, he has been a big-time running back by committee guy, and almost every team is a running back by committee team. But he's been doing this a lot more. And I know we had a lot of frustrations with Javonte Williams early in the season last year with the Broncos because of Melvin Gordon getting so much work. And for years, it was Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams going back and forth. And even go back to his days with the Jaguars, Nathaniel Hackett has always done this. So I would not be surprised if we start to see like a little bit of work go to, let's say, Bam Knight, Michael Carter, just to keep Breece Hall healthy for a while. And I think what you're going to see, most people should see this, is Breece Hall value dip at the beginning of the season. And then that might be, Dave, what you kind of alluded to is the perfect time to buy and really cash in on Breece Hall long-term, because by the end of next year, this could be really, really looking good for Breece Hall and the Jets. All right, let's get to our second pick. And Joey, well, you're the new guy here. I probably should have given you the first pick, but we gave you the second pick. So tell us who you took with the 102.
Yeah, I took Ken Walker III. It wasn't very tough. Last year's PPR RB18. He finished with 9 touchdowns on the season and 0 fumbles. Love to see that from a rookie running back. Second most red zone rushing attempts in the league among all running backs, not just rookies. 73.8% of his team's red zone carries as well. Total stud. End of the season with 3 100-yard rushing games in a row. And looking at the other rookie running backs, he was only one of 2 rookies to rush for over 1,000 yards on the season. In fact, he led all rookie running backs in total yardage on the season. And even though Garrett Wilson won Offensive Rookie of the Year, he actually had the most first-place votes. The thing I love most about him, though, is he is explosive. He had the 3rd most breakaway runs. That's runs over 15 yards plus. He had 17 of them. He's just an explosive player. In 2023, he's going to lead this backfield. DJ Dallas is the only running back under contract with Seattle currently. But Seattle, they do have quite a bit of cap space, and they still could bring back Penny, but I'm not exactly sure if they will or not.
Joey, you are out here. You're stirring up arguments because you just talked about Ken Walker getting more first place votes in Offensive Rookie Year than Garrett Wilson. And I know Dave feels some sort of way about it, but I'm going to let Dave just kind of like sit there and stew. I'm up with my 3rd pick, and this is going to really piss him off. Dave, just hold it all in. Hold it all in until you're ready to just explode on us, okay? Because with my 3rd pick, I took Chris Olave, the wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. And I know, what? I didn't take the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Well, listen up, okay? Let me learn you something here about my boy Chris Olave, all right? Now, Chris Olave last year, he was averaging 13.1 PPR points. Guess what, Dave? That's more than Garrett Wilson. Oh, my gosh. And the Saints likely going to be without Michael Thomas next year, who is a big cut candidate. Jarvis Landry, his contract is up. Alvin Kamara now has some legal issues where we don't know what direction that's going to go. And honestly, the efficiency's been kind of dipping there with Alvin Kamara. In 2022, Olave was 15th in the NFL in target share, 3rd in air yards share. Basically what I'm saying there when I use all these fancy terms, that he was getting targeted a lot, and he was getting targeted for deep, big-time plays, okay? This wasn't a guy that was just getting little underneath routes and falling afterwards. Now, I know we're going to have a little talk here about Chris Olave versus Garrett Wilson, but I kind of wanted to, let me, counselor, if you don't mind, I'd like to present my argument first, and then I'll let you take the floor, okay? Because between Olave and Wilson, both of these guys, 4 touchdowns in the season, both of them average 8 targets per game, and both of them had 3 games with 100-plus receiving yards. Now, when it came to who was better in some other categories, Olave had a better catch rate than Garrett Wilson. Not necessarily indicative of a better fantasy player, but he also had more receiving yards per game. He had more fantasy points per game. Like, let's just get down to the meat and potatoes of it. More fantasy points per game. His target per route run, nearly 26%. It was top 10 in the NFL. Second only behind Drake London, who that's kind of crazy. I didn't realize he had done that well in terms of targeting. And after the first 7 weeks of the season, we kind of saw a shift here with Garrett Wilson, which led to him getting the Offensive Rookie of the Year. And these are kind of the things that I'm worried about with the Jets. And Dave, I'm sure you'll touch more upon this with Garrett Wilson, but the Jets, this is something I said a lot last year. I'll continue to say it here in the offseason until we have a little bit more information. The Jets are a team without an identity still, in my opinion. They don't have a quarterback. Are they going to be a run-heavy team with Breece Hall and Nathaniel Hackett and all these other running backs? Are they going to be a pass-heavy team? Do they get Aaron Rodgers? Does Elijah Moore get more involved? I don't know. So I'd rather lean towards the guy in Chris Olave that could become the entire identity of his offense in the New Orleans Saints. And honestly, if they get Derek Carr, not saying he's a Hall of Famer like we saw on Twitter today, but I think that you could see a really big kind of Devontae Adams-like breakout that he had in Las Vegas for Chris Olave in New Orleans. All right, Dave, I'm done. Go ahead, pick 4. I'm just going to spoil it. Garrett Wilson, go. Rip me to shreds.
Yes, and I'm not going to rip you to shreds. I mean, these are both amazing players. I don't think you can go wrong with either of them, Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson, but I do give the edge to Garrett Wilson. So I would have been totally content getting Chris Olave here at 104, but more than happy to get the guy that I prefer ever so slightly. I mean, we already talked about it, but he was the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Funny enough, I think the guy that I took 101 should have been Offensive Rookie of the Year, even despite the ACL tear. I mean, if Brock Purdy's going to be a finalist, I think we got to throw Breece Hall in the discussion as well, but I won't go off on a tangent there. But really what we're looking at with Garrett Wilson, he led all rookies in yards, targets, receptions. His 24.9% target share ranked 21st best in the NFL. Now, Chris Olave did have the edge there, but when you look at the offense, there are so many more playmakers in New York that it makes sense that it's going to be a little bit more difficult for Garrett Wilson to pull those targets. Now, We can talk about what the Saints offense looks like and what the Jets offense looks like, but we don't have to compare these guys in different offenses and different ecosystems. All we have to do is look back 2 years ago when Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson were on the same team, and Garrett Wilson had more catches, had more yards, had a better depth of target. The only thing that Chris Olave had the edge in was touchdowns, where he outperformed him 13-12. So when these guys were teammates on the same team, Garrett Wilson was the better wide receiver. So we can look at all the external factors of being on different teams in the NFL, but I just think that Garrett Wilson is the slightly better player. There were some concerns that he wasn't going to be big enough to play, just around 185 pounds coming into the league. But man, he passed the eye test with flying colors last year. He was winning routes all over the field. He was getting yards after the catch. He was, making spectacular contested catches. He's got NFL speed where he was just able to blow past defenses. I mean, this guy looks like a superstar in the making. Like I said, I have him and Olave in the same tier. I don't have an exceptionally strong take on one or the other. I love them both, but I do prefer Wilson ever so slightly.
So I tweeted something about like my research that I did here on Garrett Wilson, and I had someone slide into my DMs and they're like, "Do you have a strong take on this man? Huh? You're out here really sporting Chris Olave." And I was like, "No, I don't have a strong take, dude. Like, it's just, like, it's slightly better. I mean, even the numbers will tell you, like, you can't go wrong with either of these two guys." Joey, at pick 5, you are up, and you took a guy that I actually really loved last year. Who'd you take at the 105?
Yeah, I was kind of glad you guys went Olave and Wilson, because I went Drake London. He was actually the first wide receiver taken in the 22 draft, although I think third in this draft is right where he belongs, because I do think Olave and Wilson are better as far as their situations next season. He finishes a wide receiver 31 in PPR, and third among rookies in targets. He had a great start to the season. 2 games into the season, it looked like London was the guy. 13 receptions, 160 yards, and a touchdown. Then it wasn't until week 13 before we saw London with a game with over 75 receiving yards. And it wasn't until Kyle Pitts tore his MCL that London really got to shine. And then he averaged 9.6 targets per game, and 29.3 target share on the season was padded by that 5-game stretch without Kyle Pitts. And the rapport that he's built with Desmond Ridder can't be understated. The Falcons are most likely going to cut Marcus Mariota, because the Falcons will save $12 million if they do so by June 1st. And they could always sign a veteran running quarterback. He does have a fumbling problem, though. He led all wide receivers in fumbles last season. But that's like the only bad thing I really see with Drake London. I really thought last year we were going to see like this Twin Towers type offense with Pitts and London. And I don't think that's out of the question to happen this year for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, not with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, Chief. That wasn't going to happen. So, okay, I think this is something like a lot of us experience, especially being in the fantasy industry, right? The Kyle Pitts conundrum last year. And Joey, you talk about Kyle Pitts as being a guy that, like, it really, Drake London saw more options or saw more opportunity when Kyle Pitts was hurt. But then, like, how comfortable are you guys with these two players going forward? Let's say they get a Lamar Jackson, a Derek Carr, or they're back with Desmond Ridder, right? Like we got a whole bunch of different options here. Where's the comfort level with you? Who's really the alpha on this team? Because we saw even when Kyle Pitts was in there, it's like Arthur Smith hates him or something. So Dave, I'll throw this to you first. Like, where's your comfort level with Drake London and Kyle Pitts?
Well, first of all, did you just insinuate that Lamar Jackson and Derek Carr are in the same tier here? Because I think those are two very different conversations.
Sir, Twitter has told me that Derek Carr could be a first ballot Hall of Famer if he goes to the Jets. Okay, that's what I've been led to believe.
He will be inducted the same year as Jimmy Garoppolo, and we will be cheering him on. But no, I mean, I think that would be the best case scenario. And that's why in Dynasty, you don't want to focus too much on situations, because we see situations change so quickly. So right now, there are people that are fading Drake London and Kyle Pitts because of the uncertainty at quarterback. But like you said, things can change at the drop of a dime. So that's why when playing Dynasty, especially when you're playing Dynasty and trying to make trades and do things in February, don't think twice about the situation, because things are going to change quickly. They could move up in the draft and end up with CJ Stroud possibly, or Bryce Young, and really elevate this offense. You talked about the potential for trading, sign and trade with Lamar Jackson, bringing in Aaron Rodgers. There's so many different ways that this can go that I think you just got to bet on the talent. And Drake London and Kyle Pitts are both exceptional talents. Even if it takes them a few years to really reach their ceiling, it's still a smart investment to make right now.
Yeah, I think if you're one of those people that believes that, talent leads to targets, I think Drake London kind of showed you that, leading all rookie wide receivers in target per route run. And I think that's something that man, like you can only go so long the way the Falcons did, running the ball the way they did, running that offense the way they did. And then for Drake London to be targeted so often, not catching these touchdowns, like something's got to give. And Dave, I think you touched on it there. Like you hit the nail on the head, man. Bet on talent when you're looking at dynasty value. Drake London's got a ton of it. So nice pick from Joey there. For myself, for Dave Kluge, and for Joey Wright, adios.